Okay, so I have spent a fair amount of time in these videos talking about something that's called the doctrine of sect. The doctrine of sect, for those who haven't caught my earlier videos, is a astrological technique or principle, shall we say, that divides the planets into two groups. One is the night sect, which is ruled by the moon. It has as a malefic planet Mars, and it has a benefic planet, which is Venus. This grouping of planets is associated with an astrological technique called triplicity. And when these planets are in signs that are feminine, which are the water and earth signs, these planets get a boost. They get something that's called triplicity. That means that they are in an element that they can work with. And therefore they have a certain degree more power than if they're in a sign that is of air or fire. This is a little bit complicated when we get into actual rulership scheme, which is a slightly different matter. So the other sect is the day sect, and this is made up of the sun as its luminary, and the planets Jupiter and Saturn are the other members. And Jupiter and Saturn gain this triplicity, or this additional dignity, strength, when they're in air or fire signs, and the sun gains triplicity when it's in fire signs only. So now, and we should mention too that Mercury gets a boost when he is in air signs, but he does not actually belong to either one of these sects. Now, when we talk about a sect, the ancient authors who told us about this dignity, they actually meant something like a sect of a religion. This is like a religious group. So now, I've talked about this previously as being a cosmological tool, that this is something that gives us sort of a flow model for energy in the universe. However, it's also a historical tool. This is describing actual sects that existed in ancient times, and one might argue that they still exist. This would be the sect of the lunar sect of the goddess, and the solar sect of the god. And if you look at a book like this, which is L.A. Waddell's The British Edda, he describes that in ancient Sumeria, there were, in fact, there was a solar cult and there was a lunar cult. And these two groups, they lived apparently in some degree of peace. They were lived side by side for a long time, but apparently at one point there was a war between the lunar sect and the solar sect. The solar sect was represented by a figure that is that L.A. Waddell calls King Thor. And again, the book that I'm referring to is called The British Edda, because L.A. Waddell believes that the Edda, which is the the Norse and Germanic traditional, shall we say, it's a historical document, according to L.A. Waddell, and not just the description of it's a source of what we know as the Norse/Germanic myths, but according to L.A. Waddell, it was actually a historical document, and King Thor was, in fact, a Sumerian king who was born on Mount Ida in Phrygia, which is Anatolia, Turkey. And King Thor was essentially forced to go to war with the Lunar sect, which had apparently become violent and lawless and criminal in its nature, according to L.A. Waddell. Without getting into too much of the details, there was a war, and a lot of the characters that we know of from Norse myths were, in fact, characters in this seminal event, this war between the solar cult and the lunar cult. So, just to make that perfectly clear now, I've recently been reading the work of a tragedian, a playwright named Euripides from the 3rd century before the Common Era, and he describes I guess a fictional event in which this character named King Pentheus, and that name in itself, I think, is telling us something, because the term Pen may be he may actually mean Ben, which is son, and it means son in, I believe it's Aramaic/Hebrew, and Theus is Zeus, that is sky god, that is the pater, the father, the sky father, essentially. And this king in this play by Euripides, and the play's name is the Bacchae. This king he was concerned because there was a cult of Bacchus, of Dionysus, that had taken root in his kingdom when he was away. And the women of his kingdom, they started going out into the woods at night to do orgiastic rites, drugs, music, and apparently hunting, chasing down animals and potentially ripping them apart, eating them basically raw. And this is something that's this Bacchic cult is very well documented. This is not a fantasy. So this king Pentheus, and this is the kingdom of Thebes in Greece. He is very suspicious of this cult, and it's actually his cousin Dionysus who is the leader of the cult. And Dionysus is alleged to be a unnatural birth. His mother was impregnated by Zeus himself, apparently, and Pentheus is questioning whether or not this is true. He's skeptical of Dionysus. All of the women, including his mother and his aunt, are members of this cult, and he basically wants to get rid of them. So he throws Dionysus in jail, and Dionysus is a basically like a pasty-faced, long-haired, hippie type of guy. And Dionysus gets Pentheus to agree to go and basically peep and watch the rites, to see the women while they're in this orgiastic rites. But in order to do that, he convinces Pentheus to dress up as a woman and to climb up on a large tree in this this field where the grove in the mountains at night. The women, they see him. They see Pentheus up in a tree, and they're basically stoned and drunk out of their minds on whatever they're doing there, and they're chanting and screaming and in a frenzy. And Dionysus has essentially cast a spell through this the inebriation, and they see him as if he were a mountain lion. And the mountain lion happens to be one of the forms of the goddess Sibyl, who is the goddess of Dionysus's cult. And they go into an absolute frenzy, and they tear down the tree that he's in, and they rip him limb from limb, thinking that they're pulling apart a mountain lion. And his mother is actually the one who is responsible for who rips him to pieces. So what this tells me is that Euripides is basically whistleblowing. He's telling us the story of King Thor, of this King Adam, King Thor. Only this time, the King Pentheus, who is a stand-in for Thor, is not succeeding in getting rid of this cult. He's ripped limb from limb. Now, to make it more interesting, Dionysus, the mythology of Dionysus is that when he was a baby, he was actually ripped limb from limb by the Titans at the behest of Hera, the wife of Zeus, who was jealous because Zeus had gotten this mortal maiden, Semele, pregnant. And Hera was used to Zeus going and screwing around with mortal women, but was not taking that. So she sent these Titans to rip the baby to shreds, just like had happened to Pentheus or Benzeus in this play. So now Dionysus has actually, first Dionysus was then, after he was shredded essentially by these Titans, Zeus came down and took his still beating heart and sewed it into his thigh where it gestated, and the baby Dionysus lived and was born, and he was called twice born or thrice born sometimes, because sometimes there's an additional mother in there, but he's at least twice born, and the second birth is to the father. So he's born of the father the second time, or third time. So he's basically, he's done to Pentheus, Benzeus, the son of Zeus. They're the same person now. Basically, this king who was doubting Thomas, who was this skeptical And the play makes this king out to be hubristic because he has questioned the unquestionable value of these great Bacchae, the Maenads, who are these wonderful women in their power out in the woods, getting drunk and stoned and not paying attention to their families anymore. They've ceased to be functional members of society. So it's my belief that our Euripides is basically this is like propaganda essentially for the lunar cult. This lunar cult is saying, you know, you're questioning our power. You know, we're gonna turn you into, we're gonna shred you to pieces, and mount your head on a pole and bring it back into town, which is what Pentheus's mother did. She still believed that this was a mountain lion, and marched his head back into town, and then was informed when she got back that you're crazy. You've got your son's head on a pole. What have you done? And she is sent into exile. She's basically she's destroyed the kingdom. It's the whole family line is dead now. The kingdom is extinguished. So, and there's more than this too. I mean, if you actually get into the details of what happens, once the Euripides describes the Dionysus as going down on all fours and chasing down a goat and drinking its, ripping it apart and drinking its blood. And the goat happens to be the symbol of the solar cult. So if that's not enough, there's a lot of astrotheological information within this play too that does that most likely nobody would know, because he describes Thebes as being a city of 7 gates. And if you know, the original form of astrology did not have 12 signs or 12 houses. It actually had 7 gates, gate 0 through 6, which is very interesting. So, there's a tremendous amount here, and it seems to me that this Euripides was quite aware of what was going on in historically with this King Thor, and he was quite happy to be telling us that the solar cult is no more.